Shalom, you're watching Arutz Sheva TV. I'm Yoni Kapinski, and this is our daily update. The morning's headlines today were all about the so-called ceasefire, a ceasefire which lasted for several hours only. At 9 a.m. sharp, the government decided to approve the Egyptian proposal, but not long after the sirens returned to blast, the rockets began to fall. Tonight we're talking about rocket sirens heard across the Jerusalem area, the Jordan Valley, Judea, Tel Aviv, and of course in the south. Since 9 a.m., more than 120 rockets were fired from Gaza to Israel. Iron Dome intercepted dozens of them. At 7:40, an Israeli civilian was killed by a rocket that struck the Erez crossing on the Gaza border. Emergency teams rushed to the scene and provided first aid, after which the victim was rushed to a nearby hospital where he was pronounced dead. The man was distributing food to soldiers when he was killed by a mortar fire. One other person was lightly wounded in the same attack. Hamas later claimed responsibility for the death, insisting or boasting that the man was an IDF soldier. Earlier, we rushed to Ashdod after the bombardment there to hear from the residents there about the so-called ceasefire. מה אתם מצפים מהממשלה בשלב הזה?
שתמשיך מאמצים להפסקת אש. אי אפשר לחיות ככה.
ברוך השם, לא היו נפגעים ועוד ניסים ועוד ניסים, ואני חושבת שהפסקת אש שאתם מדברים עליו זה פשוט זה בדיחה, כי כמה זמן החזיקה, סך הכל אולי שעתיים, אפילו לא, ואנחנו רואים את המצב.
עדיין אין הפסקת אש, כי יש עכשיו טילים על חדרה, על אזורים בצפון, זה לא הפסקת אש.
Before the ceasefire began and right away collapsed, U.S. President Barack Obama related to the situation in the area.
Now, I will say very clearly, no country can accept rockets fired indiscriminately at citizens. And so we've been very clear that Israel has the right to defend itself against what I consider to be inexcusable attacks from Hamas. At the same time, on top of the humanitarian crisis in Gaza that we've worked long and hard to alleviate, the death and injury of Palestinian civilians is a tragedy, which is why we've emphasized the need to protect civilians, regardless of who they are or where they live. I believe further escalation benefits no one, least of all the Israeli and the Palestinian people.
So far, it seems that the approval of the ceasefire was, tactically speaking, a very good move in terms of Israel. U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry harshly condemned the Hamas terrorist organization on Tuesday for persisting in launching rockets into Israel from Gaza, despite Israel's entering into a unilateral ceasefire earlier in the day.
In so brazenly firing rockets in multiple numbers, in the face of a goodwill effort to offer a ceasefire in which Egypt and Israel have joined together, and the international community strongly supports the idea of a ceasefire, the compelling need to have a ceasefire. At the same time, there are great risks in what is happening there and in the potential of an even greater escalation of violence. We don't want to see that, nobody does, nor does Israel. But Israel has a right to defend itself. And it is important for Hamas not to be provoking and purposefully trying to play politics in order to gain greater followers for its opposition and use the innocent lives of civilians whom they hide in buildings and use as shields and put in danger. That is against the laws of war. And that's why they are a terrorist organization. We need to remember what is at stake here. And we will continue to work for a ceasefire. Now, at the moment, one of the reasons I'm going to Washington and not to Egypt, just to answer possibly another question ahead of time, is because there was this offer on the table. And we believe that it was important to give this offer an opportunity. And I still think perhaps reason could prevail if the political wing can deal with the military wing and Egypt can have some leverage. Let's see what happens.
At Ashdod today, we met Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman. Avigdor Lieberman was there with the Italian Foreign Minister. He brought her there to see from up close how a bombardment home looks.
We understand that we're still in the midst of the battle. They still continue with the launching, and the Hamas is aiming only civilian population. and you can imagine what will happen in every country. Can you imagine rockets on Roma or Napoli? Can somebody imagine rockets on Washington or New York? And I think that we must retaliate as all normal country.
Right from Ashdod, Lieberman continued to Jerusalem, where he spoke to the press.
And we're sorry about casualties, but I don't know any other military operation without casualties. And I think it's their fault, it's their shame that they're ready to sacrifice innocent people for their terrorist activity.
Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the security situation in Israel on Tuesday night, threatening a full-ground invasion in the event that escalation from Gaza continues. If Islamic Jihad and Hamas do not respond to the Egyptian ceasefire, I will tell the IDF to act against them with great force, he said, and this is what we did. The IDF bombed many terror targets in Gaza. The attacks will continue. Hamas chose to continue the conflict, and it will pay the price for it, he continued. Anyone who tries to harm the citizens of Israel will hurt them. For as long as there is no ceasefire, we will respond with fire, Netanyahu added. The Prime Minister vowed to take all necessary measures to protect Israeli civilians. In a dramatic political move today, Prime Minister Netanyahu has fired Deputy Defense Minister MK Dani Danon. Danon, who is a member of the Likud party, Netanyahu's party, has been a consistent and sometimes harsh critic of the Prime Minister's leadership. Sources close to the Prime Minister say Danon's scathing criticism of the government's decision to sign up to a ceasefire agreement with Hamas proved the last straw, at a time when the government of Israel and the IDF find themselves at the height of a military operation against terror organizations and are acting with determination to ensure the security of the citizens of the country. It is unacceptable that the Deputy Defense Minister attacks so sharply the actions of the government that is leading the operation. This is part of the official letter we received from the Prime Minister's office regarding the firing of Deputy Defense Minister Dani Danon. You know, in many cases, we thank God here that the missiles landed in open areas. But what are these open areas? Some of these open areas are actually farms. And as we can see in the footage we are seeing now, sometimes this is very unpleasant and also an economic blow to the owners of the farms. In this video, the aftermath of a rocket attack on an agricultural kibbutz on the border with Gaza can be seen. 30 cows were left dead after the shrapnel-filled rockets hit a cowshed, dealing a serious blow to the livelihood of the farmer in question, and further highlighting just how deadly such attacks would be had Israel not invested so heavily in defense systems such as bomb shelters, earlier warning alarms, and of course the Iron Dome missile defense system. In response to the incident, farmer unions have urged the government to do more to protect the livelihood of ranchers and farmers in the area. Yesterday, we heard a few words from Malcolm Online, who is here as part of an important delegation from America, who is here for solidarity and strengthening. Today, we met the members of the delegation in the Knesset. Our correspondent Chesky Ezra spoke with them in the Knesset, Israel's parliament.
We go away strengthened to see the courage, the resiliency, the dedication of the people of Israel, those who have been living for days and days under the barrage of Scud missiles, and those for years who have lived under it in Sderot and Ashkelon and other places. And we have the opportunity to go back and tell the story, having seen firsthand what they are going through, to see their commitment to sustaining life, and that Israel is working to protect its citizens, and while they're fighting an enemy that only wants to kill civilians.
We're here to give chizuk, to give strength, encouragement to the people of Israel during these very difficult times. And we're here with about 35 other people from representing other organizations. And we've met with representatives from the government. And maybe even more important, we met with people from Sderot, Ashkelon, some of the affected cities. We spent time with them last night. We were in the bunkers last night. And we're here really to show our support.
Okay, that's all for today. We'll be back with more news tomorrow for another daily update. Until then, from all of us here at Arutz Sheva, IsraelNationalNews.com, thank you very much for joining us. Good night.